And it's going to be a Stargate build here for Stats in map number 2. Up in the main base. If we do see a Void Ray or 2 coming out, we saw in the group stage that triggered an immediate just 68 drone mass Queen Roach Nidus response from Reynor, but it often wasn't the right call there. So I'm curious to see, you know, does Stats commit to the Void Rays? Is it a single Void Ray? How is Reynor going to change his adaptation now that we're in the bracket?
We'll have to see, and he has to be so much more cautious after that first game as well. I feel like if Reynor had been playing against, say, Trap or Cest, or a player that has a little bit more range than Stats, or than you would think Stats has, right? A little bit more of that potential for aggression. Maybe Reynor is a little bit more cautious with the scouting. Maybe he puts a little bit more chips on the units early on. But Stats really catching him off guard last game. Now Reynor has to be aware of a range of possibilities. He has to really be scouting over and over and find out whether it is going to be one Void Ray, whether it is going to be a second Stargate.
Yeah, I'd expect an Oracle after that, and indeed it is. But the Overlord's not going to see that. Void Ray is going to come over. As long as it turns on its prismatic alignment, the Overlord just disappears without getting any real information, other than the fact that there's a Void Ray on the map and a very quick third base right on 3 minutes and 45 seconds. Reynor's not going to commit anything to try and deny that, knowing that the Void Ray, the Adept, kind of positioned between the pylon, and any future Oracles are going to keep that completely safe.
Yes, sir. And this drone this time around will get trapped, but honestly, that grants him a little bit more minerals, though it is near irrelevant. They are both very close to each other, and they're both responses, making the spore or not. Now, Stats is transitioning into a Robo for the time being, as well as the Archives here. So, what do you think we're going to see, Piggy? Are we going to see Storm here after this?
Yeah, I think we'll definitely see probably a quick Storm, but he might just actually go straight to Robo Bay and get Disruptors, simply because he's seen such heavy Queen style from Reynor, and classically Stats' response to players who kill him with Queens is to swap into Disruptor play. That being said, Templar Archives goes down there, so maybe going to stick with Storm. He had a really cool series against Solar a few weeks back where Stats actually was just dying to these mass Queen Ravager Baneling pushes, and in the final game he was like, that's it, I'm gonna go Storm and Disruptors, and just, you know, I can't take a fourth base, I'm just gonna sit here, turtle up, and you're not gonna be able to break in. But here it looks more like a traditional progression. It's just, you know, a couple less Void Rays than you might go for in some options. Gives him faster charge, faster +1, nice quick route straight towards Storm. And both players just getting situated in the late game. We're going to get to see players in their optimal setting, and let's see who's got the advantage in that late game scenario. Stats now secures the fourth base. Moving on up to that, the Immortal production continuing, and 21 roaches building for Reynor. So this is kind of his safety in the mid-game. Lots of Queens. He's going to add a whole pack of Roaches, and he's going to try to get up to the Lurker Viper. Interestingly, though, no second Evo chamber. I'd really love to see some Carapace upgrades, because this scenario often goes to carriers up against Hydras and Queens. Carapace upgrades are so important in that scenario.
Yeah, you'd be perfectly right about that. Do you think we could see even some Infestors here, or is that going to be out of the question?
Well, if he wants to win every game with ease like Rogue did in the group stage against Stats, then yeah, absolutely. Microbial Shroud apparently is pretty good, but hey, you know what? These Roaches are going to run forward. They're going to get a couple of Archons. But man, Prismatic Alignment says, no, that's not worth it. That is a very good trade for Stats.
Can we look at the units lost tab really quick to get a good idea for what that was? And yeah, the Prism at least getting shoot away, so that's pretty nice. And it's not so bad for Reynor on the resources lost tab. And he did get rid of a lot of gas units, so even though it's not an efficient trade per se, he did get rid of 2 Archons, and he did get rid of that initial Templar, where Stats has been spreading his gas thin across multiple techs. So it's not the worst thing, and talk about multiple techs. Here comes the Fleet Bacon.
Tasty, tasty. Guaranteed to come with extra salty Zerg tiers in most games, but this is Reynor and he's prepared. I don't know if we're going to be getting that auto win it gets in Platinum League on the ladder, mate. It's going to be a bit of work, and Reynor's already coming across, and he's actually going to do the Lurker push. Ooh, he's going to do... Oh, wow. Lambo's talked about this build quite a bit. It's just immediately you're going to have Seismic Spines. That's the range upgrade kick in, and that allows you to siege down cannons and static defenses. You got Mass Queen Hydra behind it. It's a very scary push. I don't think there's any Vipers on the map, which means he's not going to be able to yoink any units, but this is cool because Storm is not very effective against Lurkers. You've got so much transfuse, you can just heal them right up.
Yeah, I really like it, and this is kind of what I was talking about at the start of the game. This is what I wanted to see from Reynor, because it kind of skips through that mid game, and instead of running head on to the static defense, you run on to the static defense and you siege it yourself. So this looks really good. There's a lot of roaches preoccupied back at Reynor's house there, so they need to make their way across the map, but this Zealot's being a nuisance. A lot of spine crawlers, however, have been made to greet them, and this is looking decent so far for the Italian Stallion.
Indeed, he's doing great right now. He's just running on forwards and pushing through big storms, landing, and those queens are getting a little low on energy. You got to be careful. Immortal Charge Lock comes forward. Stats is going to go for the bust. The queens are still providing a meat shield, though, and there's a lot of lurker damage in a perfect arc. You can see all the lurkers are firing at once. The queens there covering it. This is looking great.
Yeah, and there was Hydras in production, which I can understand because there's still the threat of the double Stargate, I suppose. But I really wanted to see circling reinforcements, because if we look at the army of stats, it cannot deal with circlings right now. The roaches actually finding their way into a fourth that seems to have been a little bit greedy, especially with that much static defense allocated there from stats. Battery overcharge will come here to try and save the Immortals, but at the same time the roaches move into the natural base, and here come the circlings. Immortals are not going to be particularly good against those, and things are falling apart for the Shield of Fire.
Yeah, great push here. It looks like you're just rushing to the late game. Stats isn't really worried about anything coming his way, and then bam, surprise, a Lurker Queen Hydra timing. Reynor, I feel like there's sometimes a bit of an instinctive strength, his ability to kind of smell his way through a StarCraft match and just kind of go with his instincts really is there. And, well, the top Protoss players are basically masters of feeding you the wrong information, so your instincts are your downfall, and that's, I think, what Stats has done pretty well this series so far. Reynor, you know, he can't stiffen up. He's still got to play his comfortable form of StarCraft, but already a little more active with some Zerglings on the other side of the map. I think he's going to try and poke around with those a bit more consistently and really try to make sure there's no secrets.
Yeah, you're saying it's gonna be the Queen Roach again, huh? I would love to see the Lurker transition that he was employing in the previous game. It's very similar situations here. There is a robo for stats, so we'll see if he chooses to go into Disruptors, but there's also the Templar Archives, which makes me think it's more likely that he's gonna go for Storm once again.
And 11 more drones, so I think you're right, Cats. I think we're going to see that Lurker style. I wouldn't be surprised to see an Infestation Pit going down and that Hive on the way in the near future. As Reynor drones up the fourth base, he's spreading creep forwards. Storm and a Warp Prism on the way for stats. The Warp Prism so powerful in that last game, but remember, that was from an advantage. It's really hard for a Zerg with no anti-air, who's behind on Ravager Baneling, to deal with a Warp Prism. Don't expect it to be as impactful in this game unless Stats starts to push ahead. But what is Reynor's strategy right now? It appears to be just max of Roach Queen walking across the map and swapping into Mutas behind it. It's, what is this? This is bizarre. It's literally a maxed out Roach Ravager Queen waltz across the map. How many queens does he have? Can we see the units tab? This is a lot. This is an insane push. I mean, right now, Psystorm's done. There's a Mortal Cannon battery up. If Stats knew about this, I feel like he'd just be adding even more cannons and batteries. His Oracle flies in and goes down. It's all about those corrosive biles. The magic ability that Reynor seems to do so damned well with is just biling his opponents down.
Yeah, there's a lot of Storm spent, but there is a lot more Storm where that came from. There is, of course, the Queen, so we're gonna look for the Templars and the Queens to trade energy on Transfuse and Storms here, and we'll see if Reynor has enough. He's getting choked up a little bit, so those Storms are gonna be extra effective, but like you mentioned in the previous game, these are chunky units, so there's only so many units that can fit in that radius, yet still, this is not looking amazing for Reynor, and he's looking to pick off the units that are gonna deal with the Mutas best. Void Rays, whatever, you need to get rid of those Archons, and if there was any Stalkers or Templars left, I'm sure that would be a priority, but Reynor actually reinforcing surprisingly somewhat with Roaches. Maybe he feels like momentum is in his favor.
The tanky just block of queens leading the charge through a choke point, and they say, you don't have enough damage, mate. You've built cannons and batteries in your third and your natural. They're not all here, and I can overwhelm you by pushing these queens across the map. I think even though it looked messy as all hell, Reynor took out all of those fancy units on the ground. Unfortunately, though, 7 more Ravagers and no Mutas on the way. Yeah, this is... I really wonder what the next step is for Reynor, because once those carriers hit the field, he doesn't really have an answer.
Yeah, well, he does have the Spire, so I guess Corruptors will be an option. Perhaps that's what he's anticipating is the carrier transition. That is something that we've seen from Stats. The shield battery with overcharge will go down, and there's only 2 Immortals that Reynor's not really going to focus down. Not at the moment anyway. Does he even have link speed? I would imagine that he does. I would love to see some link reinforcements just to seize this opportunity. That Immortal doing a little bit too much will get chased back, and Reynor should just look to take this annoying position between 2 bases to cut off reinforcements, and there's still just roaches in production.
You know what? When in doubt, go back to a hero of your past. And Reynor here, channeling his inner Stefano. Yeah, he added some queens to it, but essentially he said, what's the last thing you'd expect? 200 supply of roaches. And he just goes across the map and hammers it home, and it's been wildly effective. Is Stats going to be able to hold on? I mean, maybe he eventually cleans this up, but he's already taken a lot of damage. I mean, the economy is still there for Stats. Reynor, really? I'd love to see some bile spread through the mineral line, just taking out those probes. Look at this defense, dude. Stats just doesn't give up.
Yeah, he really doesn't. He's been kiting towards this defense, and Reynor didn't take that 4th base, right? He has been looking for the kill move. He has been looking for the key units. He has been looking for that Immortal, for those Templar, to make sure that there isn't Archons being morphed. But now carriers are out on the field, and that is going to pose a great threat to Reynor, who does have a Spire. So I've been staring at the production top like a hawk, expecting some sort of Corruptor here. Is there a second Spire going up? Did he cancel the first one?
You know, he cancelled his first one earlier, then rebuilt it, then it finished, and I'm pretty sure it finished. No, it did. He cancelled it a second.
Oh my god! Okay, well that makes more sense.
Third base, or his low ground one. I'm not sure. Either way, he's got queens here, does Reynor, and it's just, it's a matter of scale. It's a matter of numbers. You know, Stats has the high-tech weaponry, but Reynor has an unlimited army of soldiers who are completely devoted to the cause, and they are willing to just charge on in. They don't care. It doesn't matter how many it takes. They're going to overwhelm this handful of Protoss.
That's the beautiful thing about Zerg, right? You're a hive mind, so you don't really have to worry about that type of stuff.
The probe there just chilling at the 3rd base. Of course, the probe scout hanging around usually serves the function of checking you're not being speedling all in. You're just making sure those early larvae are turning into drones. And speaking of Zergling all-ins, of course, can't wait to see our boy Rogue playing later today. In his group stage, he did try to do a speedling drone all-in against Parting, which didn't quite work out. But, you know, that's always in the meta. You always got to check for it as a Protoss player. The moment you get lazy, that's the moment you lose tournament games to Zergling rushes.
Yes, indeed. Now, I don't think we're going to see Reynor try something too strange. I think that if I wearing his shoes, I'd be thinking, all right, well, the things that have worked out for me are the good old standard play. And Stats, I'm not sure what he's thinking, but he's opening with a Void Ray once again. I want to say for most of the series that has been the case. And yeah, one drone is one drone too many.
Indeed. Reynor a little slow on the Spore Crawler trick there to defend that. Meanwhile, though, his Zergling being nice and annoying in the main and spotting the Void Ray, which is awesome for Reynor because it means he doesn't necessarily need to sacrifice an Overlord. I don't think he even has an Overlord over there right now, actually, right? He's already halfway home, so he might actually save all of his Overlords. And if you can deny that Void Ray from getting even a single kill, it really does just speed up your early game a little bit. These adjustments, these tiny little boosts get you a few workers sooner, that turns into a few Ravagers sooner, and it makes your mid-game just 1,000 times smoother.
Yeah, loses a drone, but doesn't lose the Overlord. I'd say it about evens out. Of course, the Overlord a little bit more expensive, but the action is a little bit later into the game, so has a little bit less impact. And yeah, I think that all in all, Reynor probably happy with that. Does lose a Zergling as well, so you know, that adds up to something. But all in all, we have, I think, a pretty even game on the back of these happenings, and it's a second Stargate for Stats. This opener has not worked once in the series. It's now the time.
Stats goal is going to be, if he's not quite ready for a push, just give up an expansion, fall back, just never lose those core power units. Let that army build up. That's where you get power in Protoss vs. Zerg.
Yeah, most definitely. And we see Stats is going for the same default. It is a Hydra Den like you predicted, P. And Stats has gone for that Forge. He is adding a battery. No doubt cannons will follow suit. And this is kind of what we were pre-facing as well, right? It doesn't really matter what the composition is. Or I mean, obviously it matters, right? Different compositions will play out differently and stack up differently against different things, but they will have their strengths and weaknesses. And the core concept that I am looking for is for Reynor to not aggress too early here. And we already have seen him go up to something like 70 workers, but now he's adding a lot of circling, so this might be a little bit earlier timed aggression than in the previous games, where in the previous games I really liked what we were seeing. That's 2 queens already falling to this Void Race.
Yeah, his queens were out of position. They were all down out front, the middle of the map. I think he expected stats to come down the right side of the map, or was expecting this move not to come quite so early, and price for it.
Yeah, but that's huge. There is a Ling Rambai that gets rid of one of those units before the additional warpins come into play, and now the Void Rays are having to be recalled defensively. So that will be Reynor's way to deal with that Void Ray aggression and buys him a little bit of time. The queens are not going to be as essential as in previous games for the single fact that there is Hydras also there for the anti-air.
Dude, this is 66 drone Hydra Bane. He's got a lot of queens as well, so I think he's going to actually bring queens up front to tank for the army. A queen Hydra Bane push is very powerful for killing a 4th base, but can it break into a 3rd? Stats knows about this. He's building extra cannons and shield batteries. I really am curious to see how this goes. You can see the defenses going down. I don't think Psystorm's going to be out in time, so Stats is saying, look, Zealots, Archons, more Void Rays maybe? No, just Zealots and Archons. I'm going to try and overwhelm this. And for Reynor, if his Banelings can connect with those Zealots well enough, if his Hydras and Queens can focus down the Void Rays and the Archons, he is looking for a killing blow. He does not even have a 4th base. This is essentially an all-in attack from Reynor.
Yeah, and I'm not sure how big of a fan I am, but I guess that makes it all the more exciting because I really don't know what's going to be happening here. There are clumps of shield batteries and cannons, so the Banelings always have a target there, and it looks like exactly what they're going to be going after right away. A huge concave of Hydralisks and not enough Warpins here for Stats, who has been taking up quite fast into that storm that's not going to be coming into play. The Archons are going to be morphed on the left-hand side there, and they will come into play, but will they be quick enough?
Oh, the Banelings are stuck behind the Hydras. The Zealots do a great job, and as the Hydra DPS falls, Reynor's army loses a lot of its power. There's still a cannon in there. The Archons do fall down. The Void Rays are still there. Each charge lot warp-in is very dangerous. Banelings are in the mineral line, though. Reynor's getting that economic... Oh, the pylon, the warping gets held off. He immediately warps in again on the right side. More Lings, Hydras, Queens coming in, but Stats, he doesn't have the numbers as 66 drone. Baneling Queen timing, and Reynor.
Look at him.
Wow.
You can see his leg there. Oh my god.